When the U.S. temporarily delayed Donald Trump's 25% tariff on Canadian imports, tensions persisted as Canada swiftly mobilized to protect its economy. Provinces and federal leaders adopted aggressive countermeasures, signaling a refusal to capitulate to U.S. pressure. British Columbia led the charge, imposing steep tolls on American commercial trucks using its highways to access Alaska, a vital corridor for $720 million in annual goods. BC also banned liquor imports from Republican-led states like California and Texas, directly targeting politically sensitive industries. The federal government escalated the conflict, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau imposing retaliatory 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of U.S. goods, including steel, aluminum, and agricultural products. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland warned Canada would not back down, emphasizing the goal to make U.S. lawmakers feel the economic pain. Provinces amplified the pressure. Nova Scotia barred U.S. firms from government contracts, Alberta hinted at leveraging its oil exports, and Manitoba and Newfoundland banned U.S. liquor while reassessing trade dependencies. Diversifying trade beyond the U.S., Canada accelerated efforts to reduce reliance on its southern neighbor by deepening ties with Asia and Europe. Through the CPTPP, exports to Japan, Australia, and Southeast Asia surged, while the CETA agreement bolstered tariff-free access to the EU. Trade Minister Mary Ong emphasized building a trade ecosystem less dependent on the U.S., supported by financial incentives for businesses pivoting to new markets. Energy as a bargaining chip. Canada's energy exports emerged as a critical lever. Supplying over 50% of U.S. crude imports, provinces like Alberta and Ontario explored redirecting oil, gas, and electricity to global markets. Threats to halt power exports to Michigan and New York highlighted U.S. vulnerability, as replacing Canadian energy would spike costs and risk blackouts for 1.5 million Americans. Meanwhile, Canada eyed LNG exports to Europe, capitalizing on demand to offset Russian gas dependence. Public backlash and economic nationalism. A grassroots Roger Boycott USA movement swept Canada, with consumers shunning U.S. products and canceling cross-border travel, costing the U.S. an estimated $2.1 billion in tourism and 14,000 jobs. Retailers in border states faced stark declines, while Canadian businesses reshored supply chains. Political rhetoric intensified, with Trudeau framing the conflict as a defense of sovereignty against U.S. unpredictability. Historical context and long-term implications. Past disputes like the 1982 softwood lumber clash and 2018 steel tariffs underscored Canada's resolve. However, this confrontation marked a pivotal shift. Canada was realigning its economy globally rather than reacting piecemeal. While U.S. industries grappled with disrupted supply chains and rising costs, Trump dismissed concessions, reimposing tariffs despite bipartisan warnings. The trade war exposed the fragility of North America's economic interdependence. Canada's retaliation, combining targeted tariffs, energy leverage, and trade diversification, challenged U.S. dominance, proving the nation's capacity to pivot under pressure. While the long-term viability of Canada's strategy remains uncertain, the clash has already reshaped trade dynamics, compelling the U.S. to confront the costs of alienating a critical partner. For Canada, the crisis forged a renewed sense of economic independence, signaling a future less tethered to its southern neighbor.